How's it going, Brent?
Just going good. It's kind of like kind of been a long day, but I'm excited for this.
Nice.
So it's definitely a pleasure to have you on Art Sounds Familiar. I'll start by saying that I looked at a lot of your work. You're very talented, and I'm excited for the audience and myself to learn more about you and your journey.
Thanks, Brent. Thank you.
Of course.
Okay. I want you to stay with me. We'll watch the moonlight. I want you to stay with me tonight. And in the morning we'll cook eggs and bacon. For you, of course, eggs and bacon. Stay with me, we'll watch the sunrise in your eyes. I can see you glowing, shines on me, and I'm just a flower. Shine on me, shine on me.
I'll start off by asking first who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
All right. So my name is Talitha Gabrielle. The full government is Talitha Gabrielle Blackwell. But for my artist purposes, I go by the name Talitha Gabrielle. So I'm originally from Virginia, Hampton, Virginia specifically.
Okay.
But after I graduated college, I moved out to Atlanta and I spent 4 years there. And right now I'm residing in Santa Barbara in California.
Oh wow, that's a big move.
Yeah, I mean, that was the goal the whole time. End up specifically in LA, but I'm close enough in LA now where it's like, okay, who even cares? Like, I'm here.
Right. And I'm sure. So part of that move was just being able to have like the resource of having other like artists and that kind of experience around you.
Yeah, that was the idea.
Okay. So like speaking about like family and where you're from, was it a big part? Was music a big part of your family at all?
Oh, absolutely. So, unfortunately, I am a product of divorce, but from what I remember when my parents were still married was my father. He was a musician in the church, and
Wow.
even after the divorce, I was still like part of my father's side of the family. So my father was a musician in the church. He played the organ and the keyboard and even the saxophone at time. Like he grew up playing the
Wow.
saxophone. Yeah, and my mother was a singer in the church. So even after the divorce, like we found another church, or even like all the churches that she kind of tried out until we found our eventual home church growing up.
Mm-hmm.
She was singing in the church choir. So like I definitely get my musical um I guess aptitude from first and foremost my parents. Both of them were very musically inclined, and
Wow.
yeah, so he was an amazing um keyboardist, and my mother is an amazing singer.
Just got it all in one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So then I guess so. How did you end up gravitating to like the acoustic guitar then?
So again, like I said, my family is all about music. My uncle on my mother's side, so my mother's brother,
Mm-hmm.
he was in the military for an extended amount of time, but there was a time that I remember when I was young where he was living with us
Okay.
in Virginia, and he played classical guitar. He played classical. He played flamenco. He read music. So my mother and my father, they didn't read music.
Okay.
They played by ear. They sang by ear. But my uncle, my mother's brother,
Mm-hmm.
he read music, and so that was when like actual like music being transcribed and written was first introduced to me. And I
Okay.
played guitar because he played guitar in that house we were all living in together.
Mm-hmm.
And I already had the musical like inclination, I guess. Like
Yeah.
I already wanted to do it. It was in my blood, and he was
Right.
sitting here playing guitar, so I'm like, I want to do that too.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
No, that's probably like an amazing like get together experience whenever you can have that. Just having, family just being able to do that or enjoy that with
Oh,
you as well.
yeah, I love that.
So then I guess then definitely family was like a big influence like earlier on in like in your life. What were some other like influences?
So, like I said, my parents, they were primarily into gospel music. That was their thing. And
Hmm.
so, at a very early age, I was forced into the choir, much to my chagrin, because I didn't want to sing in the church
Hmm.
choir. But it proved to, it influences the stuff that I do now, like all the harmonies and the chord progressions. Most of that is influenced by gospel music.
Mm.
And then secondly, once I kind of like started feeling the secular world,
Hmm.
because for a while, like when I was growing up, I was limited to gospel music. I was told that I could not listen to any music
Hmm.
that was not gospel music.
Right.
And my as I grew older, my mother kind of put like a leniency on that and was like, okay, you can listen to instrumentals or whatever. So I was doing that. But once I got into music that was like secular and not only instrumentals, I found myself influenced by Amy Winehouse
Okay.
and India Arie, Lauryn Hill, Jasmine Sullivan, like all of even at a certain point, it was Keisha Cole
Wow.
because like I yeah, no, but like I admired the struggle and how that portrayed in
Hmm.
her music. Like it was real.
Yeah, the
She wasn't.
power.
She's not exactly like she's not the best singer when you think about singers, but like her music is authentic.
Right.
And so those are the people. Well, some of the people that influenced my sound today.
Okay. So then, especially coming from that household, because I'm definitely also like from more of like a Christian household. Like I lived part of my life in Ghana because my parents were like more Ghanaian, and you're raised in like a culture that's like, yeah, this is circular. Like, stay away from there. So like, when you felt that okay, this is kind of the direction that you're trying to take your art, how were you able to convince, for lack of a better term, like convince your parents that okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm pursuing, and take it or leave it, I guess.
So it was definitely that way on my as far as like my father, like
Mm.
because again my parents were divorced, so a lot of my time was spent with my mother and my mother's side. So thankfully my mother was like, okay, this is what you want to do,
Mm-hmm.
fine. I'm not going to press you to do like gospel music, just as long as you sing in the choir while we're at this church. Like I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to press you. And obviously that was not said, but it was kind of like an unspoken agreement. Like she
Mm-hmm.
saw that I had the talent and I wanted to move outside of the gospel realm, and she supported that. I
Mm-hmm.
can't thank her enough to this day. She supported that.
Right.
She's still singing in the choir at church, but like she's not pressing me to like go back to gospel music.
Right.
And I appreciate, like I can't thank her enough. And then as far as my father's side, it was more of a take it or leave it kind
Like, listen.
of thing. This is what it is.
So was there ever a time where you had to put like music on the side at all?
Yes, there's always a time, because right now, and has as it has been in the past,
Mm-hmm.
music was never my sole income. Like I always needed something to supplement it, and even more so in the past because I wasn't making money off of it.
Mm-hmm.
So there were times where I had to seek other avenues, and one of them being theater. Like I got lucky and I got into theater because theater is also another dream that most people have, that they're not able to make it their main job. And
Right.
so so I was picking up all of these theater gigs specifically in sound. And then there was a time in Atlanta where I was doing a lot of film stuff. I was a set dresser, and all the while I was having to put my music on the side and come
Mm-hmm.
back to it whenever it was possible or even allowed with my schedule. So
Oh.
there was a lot of times where I had to kind of like just press what was already released,
Mm-hmm.
and like which was it was kind of a big thing to me because I wanted to be performing more,
Right.
but I had to rely and rest on my laurels of the recordings that I had out. So when I was taking breaks, I would still be trying to push the music that I have that's recorded out, but like still kind of like wanting to do the whole like performance side of it. So yeah, I had to take many breaks to focus on what was actually funding my income.
Right. So then, are you doing that more permanently now? Or have you done that for like a longer stretch now, where it's just uh your primary focus has just been music, or it's still kind of an up and down thing?
So when I was in Atlanta, it was still like an up and down thing. But once I moved to California, and this was actually one of the reasons why I decided to make that jump or that leap and move to California, it started becoming like a regular thing. And it wasn't, completely fulfilling my income requirements, but it was enough to supplement it. Like I was making like not half, but I was making enough for it to be like, okay, I want to keep doing this. I want to keep pressing this. But obviously, COVID happened, and
Yeah.
everything that I had planned and like all of that just kind of, got put on the side. So yeah, when I moved out here to California, it was starting to become a regular thing.
Where you been at? Oh, you been waiting. You got me saying, baby, yeah, yeah, please don't leave me alone. And not a moment goes by in my head. I'm not thinking, baby, are we through? I'm not thinking about you anymore. I'm lost in my thoughts, but every time I hear your name, my heart beats just a little bit faster. Why you always got me? Yeah. Text me, snap me when I'm all alone at the late night.
On your Instagram, you're doing like performances where you'd perform like on your Instagram and then kind of record that for your audience. What are the other things that you've been able to do now to kind of sustain yourself and also still keep the presence?
So I haven't really been able to do anything um, that gives me income, but I have, like you said, I have been doing videos on Instagram. There've been like virtual concerts where people will be like, "Hey, do you want to play? Do you want to be on the lineup?" And I'm like, "Sure, yeah." So I'll do that, and also I'm on the in the background, like this stuff isn't being released, but I this past month I was working with a band called Dawn of J, and I helped produce and record an EP that they're coming out with. And I've also been doing like kind of like trying to revamp my set list because I try not to do too many covers. Like I'm all about original music. So
Mm,
on the side, I've been trying to like hone in what I really want my sound to sound like when we come back, like post COVID.
right.
And I've just been working on me
Hmm.
as well as doing those little Instagram videos to be like, oh hey, I'm still here. Don't
Don't
forget about
forget.
me.
Yeah, right. No, that's good. It's good you're staying still. Like you're definitely like still on top. It's like it's almost like a cocoon period, like preparing, getting
Yes,
stuff right for when, God willing, this COVID goes away.
right, absolutely.
What genres of music do you work in currently?
So that's a an interesting question because growing up when I was first starting this music thing, I thought I was neo soul.
Mm,
But like neo soul is kind of hard to explain, especially to white audiences, and that's where I found myself. Once I moved to California, I was
mm,
performing mainly for more white audience or predominantly white audiences.
mm-hmm.
So I had to kind of like redescribe myself, and the best way that I kind of figured that would translate and like across any culture was acoustic pop.
Ah, okay.
And like I still don't think that really describe because I know I'm not R&B, I'm not hip hop,
Mm-hmm.
but neo soul really I think that really describes me, but there's more of an acoustic element. And neo soul kind of still like traverses those R&B lines.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what best describes me is like some kind of hybrid of acoustic pop and neo soul.
Okay, so then what made you gravitate towards those genres? Just because, like, you were talking about how, yeah, you started off more coming from like a gospel kind of home. You went into like instrumental. Um, and I'm sure then you got a chance to like explore all these genres. What kept you there? What kept you in the neo soul slash acoustic pop domain?
Well, a lot of what kept me well, I'm gonna start with what kept me away from the other genres. A lot of what kept me away from hip hop was and this happened in Atlanta was I realized that I didn't want to be stuck singing hooks. Like I'm more
Mm.
than just a hook singer. Like I write I and this is interesting because like for a while I was thinking, oh, I'm not I'm not the best lyricist. I can't write lyrics. But
Mm.
as I grew, I discovered like I was more than just a hook singer. And so when I was in Atlanta, that's where I was like kind of finding myself falling too easily into like being a hook singer for rappers, and that
Mm.
I felt like
Was it for
that's
you?
not where I want to be. Yeah, that was not for me. And so then I kind of like started exploring just different sounds and listening to different types of music. I
Mm.
had an alternative phase. It's like, oh, like I can't do this type of music. I liked listening to it, but it just wasn't me. So ultimately, it was just like what my voice like felt comfortable in, like how I felt
Mm.
comfortable singing, and the sounds that felt comfortable coming out. And that's how I leaned more into like the acoustic pop and neo soul genres. Like I felt comfortable in those areas, and I felt comfortable enough to even grow and like change those genres to sound like something different. And
Right.
that's where I'm at right now. I feel like I don't necessarily fit in those genres. Like I want it to be different.
Right. You're making it your own, so
Yeah,
to speak.
exactly.
Yeah. No, that's powerful because like you, a lot of the artists even currently, it's, you ask them kind of the same question, and even people that are doing hip hop don't want to really be considered hip hop anymore because they feel that again their talents allow them to explore a lot of different genres. Um, and when I actually did like more research on like a Michael Jackson, for instance, they call him the king of pop, but like if you listen, a lot of his music, some of it was in different genres as well. So
Mhm.
it's like
Yeah.
there is a general label you can give, but as an artist, like you're saying, you can you can be a lot of things, and you're gonna mold a lot of things into who you are as a person.
Absolutely. And I honestly think hip hop is just an umbrella. It's a broad
Mm.
term that, they quote unquote they have used to describe
Mm-hmm.
any type of like quote unquote urban music.
Right.
So
Right.
so it's a lot of things that fit under that hip hop umbrella that wouldn't necessarily qualify as hip hop music.
Right. Right. So, um, speaking of like music, speaking of different genres, what was it like working with Crystal Katcha? Because that artist like dance electronica. So how was that balance like? How did that happen even?
Okay, so Crystal Catcher is a British guy living in the UK, and he
Mm.
found me via SoundCloud. So
Mm.
he sought me out, and
Wow.
what I like about him was that he knew what genre he was in, and he didn't try to press that upon me. He was like, just sing whatever. Like on all of our dialogues, he was just like,
Wow.
just do what you do, sing whatever. He didn't try to like fit me in any type of box.
Mm-hmm.
He just had me just blow, and he did with it what he could. And so that collaboration, it still stands today. We're actually kind of, we've got something in a pocket that is it needs to be worked
Brewing.
on, but yeah, it's brewing. And so that I actually liked, like, listen to electronic music. Like there's a lot of different elements and a lot of different things that kind of fit into that genre. But I mean, there's have you heard of Disclosure, the
No.
producers? So they came out with a song with Sam Smith that
Okay.
like everyone was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing! It's just Sam Smith." But I was listening to Disclosure before everyone knew who Sam Smith was, and they
Mhm.
were kind of like electronica music, and a lot of the stuff that they were doing. That's kind of where I heard myself fitting into electronic music, and so
Ah.
when Crystal Catcher found me and was like, "Hey, can you do this?" I was thinking, oh, we're gonna be the new next Disclosure. But it's just it's so much more than that because like he's not necessarily doing their style, which is
Right.
great because I'm a different voice in that genre and he's doing whatever he wants. And like I said, he didn't press upon me to fit into any type of box. He was just like, do
Hmm.
what you do.
Right.
So yeah, that's what it was like working with him still to this day.
Well, that's amazing.
Okay. Four-leaf clover, put me in your pocket. I want you to take me everywhere. You're running through a field of green. Maybe I can be your lucky charm.
So, are there instances where, because I'm sure you've worked with and collaborated with like a lot of people, and I'm sure not all of them went how you'd wanted it to go. How's that experience like? I was talking with like on other podcast episodes. I was talking with different artists, and some of them are like, it's difficult because sometimes your visions are different. And so, how do you, if you ever have gone through kind of that experience, how do you navigate through that?
So yeah, I absolutely agree with that sentiment. It is difficult when you have artistic differences, but at the end of the day, like you're either going to accept those differences and compromise to make a better product or a better outcome, or you'll just dissolve that collaboration.
It's like
And
one and
I
done.
haven't, yeah, and I haven't had any that I've dissolved. There have been things that haven't necessarily been released, but I've
Hmm.
almost always compromised for the sake of whoever I'm collaborating with.
Okay, just the bigger picture, just to get this.
Yes.
All right, I feel you. Yep, and I feel that too. And if it's not it, put it in the vault.
Absolutely.
So can you, because you talked about wanting to perform, and I'm sure like your upbringing also kind of influences that a lot as well. Can you remember the first time you had to perform live as a musician outside of like the church, and how that experience was?
So unfortunately, I cannot remember the very first time, but I
Okay.
do remember like very early when I started performing, I was terrified. Like I
Mm.
realized, I have something that I want to share, but I don't I mean I like it, but I'm not so sure everybody else is gonna like it. And
Mhm.
so I was terrified. And like even to this day, I'm still terrified because like when I was younger and earlier in my performing career, I, wasn't sure that people were gonna like it. But now I'm like, okay, it's been proven that people like my music, and I'm still terrified
Right.
because like now it's different factors. It's like, can I execute this as well as they're expecting me to execute it?
Right. Different problems. See?
Yes. But yeah, in the beginning it was definitely I'm terrified. I don't know these people, they don't know me, and this is new music. People don't want to hear, like, people want to hear covers. This
Right.
was especially when I started doing like my original stuff. People want to hear covers. They want to hear what they're used to. They're not necessarily inclined to listening to new things. And so I
Hmm.
was terrified always.
No, that's an interesting point you raise as well, because like until you hear like a label backing or
Right.
some other artist that is considered bigger, like maybe featured on it, your typical inclination is, I don't know, I'm not sure, but you probably bop your head to like anything certain specific artists just like put out. So that is, I feel that. And so I guess not even if it's not your first performance, with your earlier performances, what was the process of even getting that gig and preparing for it?
So in earlier performances, there was a lot of open mics,
Mm,
and that happened. So it started in Virginia, but as I was leaving Virginia, that's kind of when I started deciding that I want to perform and I want to produce and I want to do all this music stuff. So once I got to Atlanta, I kind of hit the ground running. I was going to all these different open mics, and at first it was just me by myself going out because like I have a thing like I don't want to like invite friends and people to performances until I've kind of like filled out the space myself and kind of
mm-hmm.
like sussed how like what the vibe is. And
Right.
so for a while I was going to these open mics by myself, terrified, like I said, and like just jumping. I was just leaping basically. And then, gradually I would start inviting people, specifically my best friend. We moved out to Atlanta together. So once I was
Okay.
comfortable like performing at these different open mics, then I invited my best friend, and so that support system kind of helped too.
Right.
And then from there, we just started inviting more people.
I see. I see. Okay.
But the process was just me like getting in my head. Okay, if you want to do this, you got to get up there and get up on that stage and sing. So,
Period.
like, yeah, period.
And I'm pretty sure that feels very different than when like it's a performance at like at a church. It's still just a totally different lane, so you don't even have that like, well, I've done it here before.
Right, because at church it's a different message, it's a different intention. At church is not about you, but once you're
Mm.
performing out in these bars, it's completely about you and what you're doing.
Um, how often did you typically perform before COVID happened?
There was a big difference between Atlanta and California. I got to California and I was actually being paid to play. But when I was
Hey.
in Atlanta, yeah. So when I was, that's why I moved. But like when I was in Atlanta, I was doing open mics and like showcases and all of that. I was doing like multiples, at least like maybe like two or three at least a month.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then I moved out to California and I was doing at least like two or three bars on a good month. On a bad month, it was maybe like once a month. But
Okay.
still, like I was still going out. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do as much or as many open mics in California because, like I said, when I did one. Actually, I didn't say this. I did one open mic in California, and this was like because I was out there originally for like a theater um summer stock job. So
Okay.
I was still living in Atlanta at the time, but I was in Atlanta for that theater. And I did an open mic and like multiple people approached me afterwards and were like, "Hey, can you play here? We'll pay you X amount. Can you play here? Can you play here?" And I had to tell them, "I actually live in Atlanta and my contract is up at the end of the month." So,
But I'm coming. I'm coming.
yeah. But yeah, I went back. So yeah, like for a while it was steady income, at least 2 gigs a month.
Mm. And so what's the like in terms of like the number of rehearsals you have to do? What's that part like? And are you always working with like a band when you have to do those kind of performances?
So currently I'm still a solo artist.
Okay.
And what I liked about being in Atlanta was that most of the places that I played at, they had a house band and they could pick up whatever I put down. So I would just be playing and they would just join me once they got it. And
Ah.
I do miss that aspect of it. But as of now, I am still a solo singer songwriter. So like when I'm prepping for a gig,
Mhm.
I'm just in the shed in my room practicing. like every day up until that gig, and I'm practicing my set list. I come up with what I want to play, whether it's like an hour set list or like I at most I've done 3 hours, and I figure out what I want to play and the transitions between those songs, and I'm just practicing them. And if I'm messing up, I'm like I'm a little hard on myself, but like I gotta go back and redo it, and that comes from growing up and playing in the school band. I was in concert band, I was in marching band, I was in all of the bands starting in middle school. And when you messed up, you would have to go back and restart that song.
Whew.
Or if it's closer, yeah, if it's closer to like, quote unquote dress rehearsal for theater people, then you keep going, but you gotta at the end of practice, you gotta hit that song again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my process. Like I'm practicing all of these things.
And so there's something I've always kind of found like interesting, because like when you're doing like a performance, you have like this band and these people playing these instruments, and you're not able to, like, I guess, close all of those things out because you're trying to stay on key and stay on the right pattern. How do you, like, is this something that just came with time? Did you ever have a struggle with that at all?
Yeah, especially when, like I said, you're playing with a house band and they don't necessarily know your music.
Right.
But unfortunately, I've played with enough house bands who have been, good enough to like pick it up as it goes along. And there are times where like I'm playing and I hear something that doesn't necessarily sound right with what I'm going, but like as a performer, you just got to keep going, and eventually it'll resolve itself, because like you're playing, you got to trust that you're playing with musicians who are also professional, and so they'll figure it out and they'll get it. But like I'll me specifically, like even if I'm playing with people who know my music, it's like I'll like in a performance, it's gonna be different every time. I'm not gonna play it the same way that you hear it on the record or the way that we rehearse it, like,
Right.
unfortunately. But like to me, a performance is like I'm gonna improvise. I'm gonna add like little ad libs. I'm gonna add what I feel, and I expect those who are like backing me to do that same thing. Like as long as it's in the key, it's in the same rhythm. Like, and if not, it passes. And like that was just a bad moment.
Wow.
But it passes.
See, this is the stuff we don't know as like an audience, like looking at stuff like that, listening to performances. We don't hear any of that. To us, it's like, oh, we just vibing, okay. And then there's all this happening in your head. I noticed that at a point in time, you had crossed paths with Janelle Monáe back in 2016. Yeah, like how did that happen? Was that more like, yeah, I'll just let you have the floor. How did that happen?
So again, I'm in Atlanta. Everyone is in Atlanta. She was, and I think she still is, backing these two artists by the name of Saint Beauty. That's their group, but it's these two girls. And I love their music. But at the time, I didn't know who they were. I was invited to that event that they happened to be performing at, because my friend who I had met in college, who now lives in Atlanta, because that's where she was from, like, she was DJing there, and she invited me because like I was just going to be like hanging with her. And so she randomly invited me to this gig that she was DJing, and coincidentally Saint Beauty was performing there, and so Janelle Monáe was there to support her artist.
Wow.
And that's how I met her.
Wow. So were you like, it was like a backstage thing, or
no? So she was like, so like it felt like we were in kind of like a school cafeteria or like like a gym. I was like some kind of like underground, like, I don't even know how to describe it other than saying like maybe a gym or a cafeteria, but it was like maybe like a cultural arts center or whatever. And like it was a stage, and it was just like this big open space. There was no backstage, and she was just sitting off to the side, like just chilling.
Just chilling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So was there any like conversation had with respect to like your art forms or anything like that as well?
So no. So I felt like I don't really know what to kind of like take away from our interaction, because it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like inspiring, but it wasn't like, you know, like, okay, I don't want to do this anymore. But she, like I said, she was just chilling. And so
Yeah,
when I approached her, I was like, "Can I take a picture?" She was like, "Yeah."
just
And so
vibes.
we took a, yeah, bye. So we took that picture, and like I could tell that she was not in the mood to have any conversation further than, you know, posing
Right,
for that picture.
right.
So
So
I left her alone.
okay, that's nice. Hopefully, one sometime future, if you make it big, you know what I'm saying, then maybe it'll come full circle. Stuff.
That's what I'm hoping.
Do you write all the songs, all your songs, or do you collaborate with like other songwriters when you're trying to create in like a specific like piece of music?
So, like I said in the beginning, I did not believe that I was all that strong of a songwriter. Like, I didn't think that I was a lyricist at all. I knew I could sing, and
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was a singer. And then after a while, because I didn't have a band, I was like, okay, I got to accompany myself. So I knew I could sing, I knew I could play, because
Mm-hmm.
I learned to play, and, you know, the singing was just a God given talent.
Right.
But when I first started, I was lacking in the lyrical part. So there was a time where I have a when I was posting all my stuff on SoundCloud. Cloud. This was before I was like putting stuff on iTunes and Apple Music and all
Mm-hmm.
that. I was on SoundCloud, and I got up with this guy that I met. He lives in, or he at the time he lived in Nashville.
Okay.
His name is, well, he went by Jay. But he was writing for me, and so we actually kind of came up with an EP called Loveless in Nashville, because he lived in Nashville, so I called it Loveless in Nashville. But after that moment, I realized like his writing was amazing and his writing was good, but it wasn't me. And so I at that after that point, I kind of decided to put more effort into, you know, trying to be a lyricist, and trying to figure out what words I wanted to say and how I wanted to portray my emotion in these songs. And so now at this point in my career, I don't, one, I don't write for anyone else, and then
Mm-hmm.
two, I don't accept anyone else's lyrics unless
Mm-hmm.
it's just like, you know, like a feature. If you want to sing whatever you want or rap, then that's fine. But like at this point in my career, I'm writing my own stuff.
Okay. And so when you started like that process of like, you know, just like writing your own things, um how was that process for you? Because was it more of um you would write first and then try to fit it with like a song structure, or was it more you would write with that structure of how a song should be already in mind?
So when I first started, I was trying to write and then like build on that,
Mm.
but that didn't work for me. So what ended up working for me, and what I do to this day, is I play around and I come up with like a chord progression that I like.
Mm.
So it's just me on my guitar just playing. And when I find chords that sound, you know, like something like, oh, this could be a song, then I start trying to write the lyrics to the music.
Ah, okay. It's almost like you make your beat, kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I did for Crystal Catcher too. He supplied the music to me, and I wrote to his music.
Mm.
And so that's what I found works best for me. Like I can't, like, and I've tried like writing prose or writing, like, you know, just writing whatever that comes out of my head and trying to put music to it, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't work for me.
You needed to kind of do everything in tandem. Create,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I feel that. So then with your album Circles and like your recent like EP, like Dreams, did you produce everything, all parts of that from start to finish, or did you kind of do the initial mix and then you got someone else to do like the mastering and all that?
So Circles and Dreams were produced by me.
Okay.
I did, so Circles is my only album, and Dreams is an EP.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those I produced, I played, I sang, I wrote, whatever. But my EP, It's Me, I was in town. I actually hadn't even planned on recording that, but I was living in Atlanta, but I just so happened to be in town in Virginia. And one of the guys that I went to college with, because I went to college at Hampton University in my hometown. And so one of the guys that I went to school with, he was like, "Oh, you're in town. Do you have anything you want to record?" And that's how It's Me was
Wow.
recorded. He recorded that, and mixed and mastered. And I went there, like I woke up, like it's crazy because I was super hungover. Like I was not ready. Like I knew the night before that I was gonna do this, and I still made the choices that I made.
I'm gonna live
and
life.
So, right. And so I woke up, and he drives me like an hour or so to it, because he lived out in the country somewhere. So he drove me like an hour.
Wow.
I'm like hungover, not ready to do this, and I did it. Like, and I like, and to this day, like I listen to It's Me, and I'm like, my voice sounds so raspy, and I know why.
Sometimes I wonder when you say those words, do you really mean them? Do you want to hear them beg for me? You want me to say I'm in love with you, and you want me to say you're the one for me. You want me to say I gave you the keys, I gave you the keys. You want me to say I'm in love with you.
But yeah, that is the only project that I had where I had someone else produce and well, not produce, but like mix and master and record it for me.
Right. Okay. So how long does that process take? For instance, like taking into consideration like an album as its own thing, and then like an EP as its own thing.
So for me, it's just basically like these inspirations for songs come into my head, and like I'm already performing them, because like once I write them, it's like, oh, let me go ahead and perform this. But then I decide, okay, these kind of have like somewhat of a theme. Let me put them together in a project. And like I said, Circles is my only album, because it was the only time, and this was in, I guess, 2017. It was the only time that I had a full album's worth of ideas in my head. Yeah, so that's why like everything else is just an EP, because I have these different, like I have these songs that may more or less fit into a theme, and then I'm like, okay, well, I should release this as a project.
Right.
And usually it's only about 5 to 6 songs.
So then it's classified then as an EP.
Yeah, and then at that moment I'm just like, I could write more, but I'm kind of itching to release this right now.
They gotta have it.
Yeah.
And so how was your approach in any way different when you were tackling your album Circles and when you were tackling like your EP Dreams? More in terms of, did you feel like your material or the thoughts that you were having were more different, or that you were exploring different things at the time?
So yeah, when I did Circles, I was still trying to fit under that neo soul label, and so a lot of things in that album include like a lot of like it's heavily processed. There are a lot of like beats and stuff going on, as well as my acoustic stuff, because I was still trying to fit solely under neo soul. So I felt like I had to have a certain vibe going on. But then with Dreams, I was like, I'm an acoustic artist, so I don't have to do so much to try to fit under a specific description. I'm just, with Dreams, I just felt like I could be more of what I'm trying to be.
Right.
which is, you know, acoustic and gradually having some kind of band behind me.
Do you love your work, or like, are you really attached to your work, or is it more of once you're done with it, you kind of it's kind of something just like a spoken word, you put it out there and that's it?
So initially, yeah, I put it out there and that's it. But there are times when I like revisit and I'm like, because I when I plug my phone in my car, it does like this shuffle thing, and like anytime I hear myself come on,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm listening, I always skip it. But
Mm-hmm.
I get into moods where I'm like, I want to listen to me to see, you know, where I've come from and where I'm at now. I want to see the gradual change, if any. And so like I did that today. I was kind of like listening to some of my stuff and I was like, wow, this is really good. So yeah, I do like my music, especially when I'm recording it. When I'm in record mode, I'm like, ooh, like I'm like patting myself on the back, like sizing myself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, like after I release it, I'm like, okay, pull the trigger, it's gone,
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually I'll come back to it.
Do you feel like that helps your like your mind as well? Like just having like a let go period of not having to keep thinking about it because you've done it for so long in the producing of the song process?
Absolutely, because I can't listen to it because if I do, I'm gonna like hear stuff that I want to change or that I felt
Mm.
like I should have changed or I should have quote unquote fixed, and like I hear all of the flaws, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily I don't want to dwell on that. So like I said, once I pull the trigger, it's out there, and eventually I'll come back to it.
Right. No, that sounds exactly like the artist dilemma. Like once you create, you can only approach it from critique. You're always gonna look at your work and be like, how can I improve? How can I improve?
Right.
What do you feel is your greatest achievement so far?
That is a very hard question to answer. Because like you mentioned, like I'm always critiquing myself. So I'm like, am I like doing what I need to do? Is this okay? Like, am I where I need to be? Like, there's always these constant questions. So I think my my greatest achievement has been, you know, just a combination of all of these projects that I've been releasing.
Mm.
Like, because you know, the performing is fine. I can go out and I can perform, and it is what it is. But to have these projects released, they're lasting. Like I go back to it, like I said, and I hear what I heard that day, and that doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, my greatest achievement has been, you know, being able to like release these projects and being bold enough
Right.
to release what I have. Like those are all my achievements.
Right. It's everything, the journey, everything encompassing.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what would be some of like your biggest hurdles you faced just trying to be a musician and just trying to be you?
So a lot of my hurdles have been what I felt I was lacking. In the beginning, I didn't have a band. It was just me as a singer. And so the hurdle was not having anyone to accompany myself. So I did it myself. I learned how to play the guitar. Like I to this day I have the guitar that my uncle played while he was living with us. Like I learned how to play the guitar. And then after I learned how to play the guitar, a hurdle was, oh, I don't have any of the recording software or the gear that all the professionals have. And I just did what I could with what I could until I was able to, with the help of like all of these different like side jobs,
Mm-hmm.
find what I needed.
Right. They're hella expensive. Hella.
Yeah, yeah, and I actually learned like it's not, you know, what you have, it's how you use it.
Mm.
And so a lot of getting over my hurdle was kind of like changing my mindset until I was able to get what I felt that I needed.
Right. Right. No, that's a great point you bring up. Like I remember when I listened to like Drake's Nonstop, and like I don't remember you definitely remember that song, and
Yeah.
for me it was just him. I was like, what is going on? And then um, and I was like, these producers must have gone crazy. And then um, I realized it was like Tay Keith. Tay Keith, if I remember it right, was like the producer, and I watched like I guess like an interview of his, and he was uh, talking about how he did it, and it was extremely simple. Like it wasn't as complex as at least I thought it was. Like hearing it, like yo, they must have had the biggest, I don't know, boom bops. I don't know, but and that was interesting. That and I think a lot of other producers, when you talk to them, will tell you, oh, just the simpler the better. Like just get if you can get the core out of what you're trying to make, you're good. You don't need to like flood it. So
Right.
no, so it's interesting you say that. That it really just most of it falls on you and your perceptions and what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. That was my hurdle myself.
It's like you every time you make these statements, it just ends up like taking me back. Literally every single interview I've had on the Art Sounds Familiar platform, a lot of people always tell you in very different ways. They'll keep mentioning the fact that the biggest issue is you. Like whether it's taking the bold steps, because every single person that's like pursuing their dreams or going in the direction that's true to their heart, it's always a bold step because our society does not. Society wants you to conform all the time, always. That's how it stays structured. So every time you break out of that in any way, it's difficult, and but you're the only one that can do it, essentially. So
Right.
so yeah, I'm just glad that every time I have an interview, people mention that because it makes that much more clear. Moving into like future. What are some of like your future goals, like both immediate and like long term?
So immediately post COVID, I'm hoping to kind of, I guess, break out more into the music scene in Santa Barbara, where I'm at now.
Okay.
And that was kind of what I was hoping to do this past summer. I was trying to get into like the wineries and the breweries and like trying to establish myself in this area because I wanted it to be like, like I wanted to not necessarily be my day job, but at least be enough to like, be half of my income from here and the other half from theater and the theater that I currently work at. And so like immediately I'm trying to get gigs in the Santa Barbara area.
Okay.
And then long term, I want my music to be played nationally as well as like, globally. Like I want everyone to be listening to Talitha Gabrielle.
Right.
That's long term.
Right.
You got me breaking all the rules, blindly following all your moves. It's like the blind leading the blind, and I'm a fool of a sheep for you. And everything that you say is true. I only hear what you tell me to. Baby, you're the summertime fire in the wintertime. You're the sugar in my tea. Baby, you're the honey in my Jack red wine sometimes. You're my exception.
And are you looking to get signed, or are you more on an independent journey as far as that part is concerned, like the label and all that?
So when I was young and first starting out, I thought being a part of a label would solve all of my troubles. But now, knowing who I am today, I think I would be better off staying independent because when you have a label, you have more financial support, but then you also have all of the things that they want from you that you're obligated to do because they're paying for you.
Right.
And so I'm kind of like stuck in the middle between like, yes, that would be nice financially and exposure wise, because if I'm backed by, a pretty good label, like say Beyonce called me, I'm gonna be like, yeah.
Yeah, you're out there. That's it.
so, so I guess it would depend on the label, but as of right now, I'm happy being independent.
Also, with that, I've heard a lot about like, oh, the dealings and how all of a sudden, when you do blow up with them, you end up not owning, your masters or your publishing or this or that,
Right.
and then it gets in the way of all of that, and then uh, subsequently, they also don't care about you, the person. They care about the product that's coming out
Right.
of you. So it's always those things to consider as well. Like it's what you're like what you're saying.
Yeah, and I'm not one for conforming. So
Right. Right. You came this far. We are here. We're staying on this path.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for joining the platform. I think you're a great voice, and I'm hoping the audience is definitely able to connect with you. I'm sure they are, to connect with your work, and look forward to seeing you progress in your journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you for interviewing me. I loved this.
Like, comment, and subscribe for more content like this.